Surprisingly, there's some debate about how long variable names should be. Some of that's opinion, and some of that comes from language-specific characteristics. As a general rule, you want the name to be long enough to accurately describe the data, but you also want the name to be as short as possible. Research on the length of time it takes to debug a problem has suggested that debugging time is minimized if the variable names are between 10 and 16 characters. But that research is a bit out of date. It's from the early 2000s, and those results are probably language specific. So let's think about what happens if a variable name is too short. Well, then it can't reflect the true meaning of what's being stored. For example, if I name a variable data, flag, or X, the name doesn't tell you very much about what's being stored. On the other hand, what happens if a variable name is too long? Well, then similar names can get confused. For example, maximum number of students could easily be confused with maximum number of subjects. One C project that I worked on in telecom had two structs that were named poll line server proc struct and poll line server proc resp struct that were related to polling another processor for information. The first was a request, and the second was a response to that request. The response was the same as the request with one additional status field, so it was only slightly bigger. Someone made this mistake on a malloc, allocating the size of the smaller one, but storing it in a variable whose type was the longer one. This meant when we stored the status in the response, we actually corrupted somebody else's memory. That bug took 6 weeks across 3 engineers to find. This problem of long names being too similar is even more problematic in languages where variables can be implicitly declared. Implicit declaration means that if you use a variable, the compiler will declare it for you. If your compiler does that, typos in names can cause the creation of a new variable with no warning to the developer. For example, if I mistype students in this variable name, I'm not likely to notice that while the compiler happily creates a new variable instead of warning me of the problem. So we need to weigh the length, long enough to be descriptive, but not so long that we don't notice the details in the name.